guys, welcome to this video. Today we're going to talk about closing techniques. And so in this video, we're going to learn what closing techniques are, when to use them, and what the best ones might be. And in addition to that, we're going to jump into some questions from viewers like you. And so we'll do our best to answer every one of those. I think there's about 10 questions. I want to welcome to the call Ryan Morris and Austin Wright. I'm Nick Smith. Together we've got about 20 years, more than that, 20 years each of sales experience. I'm an author. These guys have just been rock stars in their business. Ryan's called the prophet of profit, and Austin's the king of closers. And I've been labeled at times as a god amongst salespeople. I wouldn't put that on myself, but it's there. So welcome to the call, guys. Should we jump in?
Yeah. I say we dive in.
Yeah. So let's talk about closing. Yeah. Go ahead. So closing techniques, what are they? What is that? It's quiet.
There are none. Well, we're
Ryan,
out of the
technique?
topic, so we don't have anything to talk about.
Honestly, we don't know what a closing technique is. We're just winging it, right?
It's
a guess.
I'll throw out my version. Yeah, go ahead.
For me, closing techniques, there's a lot of different things that you can do for closing. Along the way throughout my sales process, I feel like it's really important to ask questions and listen to the needs of the customer. And so, like, as I'm going through my sales pitch, I'm talking to somebody about a particular product. In my case, I sell RVs for a living. I know it seems like it's a step above a janitor, but I do very well in that industry. And but I think that the basic techniques are still the same. As you're talking to somebody and you're listening to what they're telling you that they want or that they need, constantly you're figuring out how to get them to the table so that you can write them up and get them sold, right? And so how to do that, I am constantly asking them little trial close questions. And I know this varies in different things. Austin's in real estate. You don't just go straight into the, for the death, the death grip or the kill right off the bat. There's some finesse to it all. But I talk to the customers and say, try to get little yeses and little commitments throughout the entire time by asking them, hey, is this the right coach for you? I mean, that's a big one, but a lot of times they're like, yeah, I don't like that one. Or hey, look, this fits the budget. This fits the price. This hits the different points that you told me that you needed. How do you feel? Do you like it? Whatever. And they try to get little commitments of, yeah, I like this one, and go from there.
So you're ambitious. You went to question number 2, like when to use it.
Right off the gate. Hey, look at this. You want to buy it?
Yeah, I still don't know what a closing question is. Like closing technique. But Austin, what's a closing technique?
Closing technique. I mean, really every industry is going to be a little bit different, obviously. I mean, depending on which one you're looking at, it's going to be a different length of time. You're going to want to do slightly different steps and approach the people completely differently. In a retail setting, you're going to want to go a little bit quicker. You're going to need to do a little bit quicker responses and need quicker things from them. In my setting, more of like a real estate, it starts from the very first call, and if I get too aggressive too soon or anything like that, then it bounces quickly. But with when it comes to a closing, anyway, and trying to make sure the deal is closed, pretty much every profession ends up being the same, that you need to actually listen to what they're trying to say rather than what they're actually saying and what's going to fit their needs. And if you can fit that, eventually they're going to buy from it. So when it comes down to it, depending on how the conversation is going, you can always go into something that's like an assumptive close where you're just assuming they're going to buy it, run into the numbers and go from there. You can always do something that's a little bit more asking or trials, like Ryan was saying a little bit early on. But I think in the retail industry anyway, it's got to be a little bit more back and forth. You want to get them to negotiate with you. If they're not negotiating, then they're not going to want to do anything anyway. But
yeah. So it's basically any type of question or sentence or anything you say that gets them to close, right? Closing technique.
It needs to lead up to somewhere. Everywhere you're trying to go is trying to go towards whatever close you're trying to do. So if you're planning on doing something where you're just assuming the sell and going straight into it, then I think you need to be assumptive throughout the entire sale and kind of gathering information so that you can be assumptive with it. If you're just going to try to wing that at the end, they're going to think you're a dick and move on. They'll go to the next guy.
Right.
But
yeah, it's kind of an ongoing deal. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. There's a lot of finesse behind, behind those tactics that Austin just talked about.
Like now with real estate, with my closing technique, now it's kind of the opposite of when I was in retail. Now it's kind of finesse the other direction. You're trying to calm them down and slow them down almost and get them to relax the entire time. Whereas retail, you're trying to keep them excited and up the entire time. So like I said, the closing techniques are going to be a little bit different, but ultimately it comes down to you listen to what they say and at the end adjust with your type of closing technique.
Right.
I would say too. Oh, sorry, you go.
Yeah, where I'm in finance, it's a little different too. Like Ryan, you're trying to close while they're there in front of you. Austin's a little slower. It takes a longer time to get them from one step to the other. Sometimes you got to slow them down. Whereas in finance, where I'm at, I've got to prime them for products. And so I might have a first turn where I get to prime them for products and then a second turn where I actually close them on the products. And so by priming, what I mean is just getting them ready to say yes to that product. And so it's a little different everywhere. But in essence, you should be doing it all the time, right? From beginning to end. Should never stop closing.
Sure.
Some type of close. I mean, yeah, at least some type of close or working towards a close. You don't always have to be using closing questions, like you said, but it depends on which type of technique you're trying to go towards. So,
I think ultimately you're trying to build trust with the customer that, that you have a product or service that they need and that you're their friend. I've heard it said, especially in the RV industry, that, people generally buy from you because they like you. They'll come back to you. I've had multiple people who don't buy right away, but then come back and walk through the door and say, look, the reason why we came back was because of you. And that happens. I mean, that's what you do. The better that you can relate with people, ask them questions, the higher your percentage of closing typically will be. Now that you've got at some point, you got to turn into a salesman and not just a friendly, nice guy. A lot of times I'll warn them up front. I'll go up and talk to them to kind of break down the barrier or the wall when you first get introduced. And I'll tell them, look, hey, we can just go for a little tour, take a look at a few things, have some fun. But at some point, if we find the right thing, I might turn into a salesperson, ask you to buy it. Is that okay? And a lot of people will be like, oh, yeah. And they laugh or whatever. If not, no big deal. I could use some more friends. You can roll with the punches there, but you go out, you try to become and build a friendship and a relationship of trust, as cliche as that sounds, and then listen to their needs. And then you can start building towards that end goal, however you get there, of closing the sale.
That's perfect. That gives them, that's a technique right there. Just by being a friend and building a relationship, that's a closing technique. For me, where I'm at, I like to tell people, look, you can say no to me. It's okay for you to say no to me. I'm going to present some products and tell you what they are, but you don't have to say yes. They're optional. And in doing that, it's a closing technique. It gets their guard down. And so let's talk about that. What are some closing techniques? Austin, do you have some in real estate that work pretty effectively?
Closing is a little different on that, but I mean, the biggest thing for me when I'm trying to close on a house or figure out if they're trying to buy something, I guess that's kind of the closest thing to I have a close like as quick as you would do in real estate. I mean, in retail, but so I think at that point it's basically just a bit of reassurance. Like you gotta have answers for their questions, right? Like I said, the whole time listening to what they're doing. So at the end time, when they come up with whatever objection is, you're able to overcome that and move on to the next objection. So when they ask you about a house, hey, I don't know if this will do this. I have a background in construction, so that way I can go into the house like it's only going to cost you this much to do this, it'll do this much to do this, and then you can move on, and then whatever. It moves on past that objection, they go to the next thing. And to me, it's a slow, but eventually you find the one that fits in everything. They run out of questions and they say, okay, let's do it. Right. And so that's kind of the closest thing to a close that I kind of get in real estate now, but it's kind of the same process, like I said, just a little bit slower. And then from that point, it turns into an emotional battle where you're just basically keeping them calm until you get to the finish line, right? Until everything's completely done and over. So in Ryan's case, that's why I think it's the same thing he was saying, is essentially being the friend approach is, in my opinion, the best approach. A lot of guys are kind of more aggressive, thick skin, call you every other day, until you annoy them to death, and then they'll work with you, but then half the time they're forgetting people and lose customers. And might get a few closes for a while, but I don't think it ends long term anyway. But those guys end up being a lot of top closers sometimes for a couple of years
Right.
until it comes back to bite them. but
it's
There's
also
a whole
it's not all about the friendship either, right? Because you could be the best friend in the world and not know crap or shit about your product, and they're not going to buy from you. Like, you have to know your product. Where you have construction background, you got to go in and say, hey, I know how to do this. In finance, I got to be able to answer every question they have. And so, like, Ryan, you got to know all these different products, right?
Yeah, for sure. Now it'll get you a long way with personality and friendship. I've sold a lot of trailers just because people do like me, but at the same time, at a certain point, though, if you don't know, if they ask you a question, you're like, you can only claim you're new in the industry for so long before they catch on, and that doesn't work anymore. Typically a few months, you can say, look, I'm new, I can get the answer, and people are generally a little bit forgiving on that. But if you don't know your products, eventually that'll catch up to you in a hurry. So you've got to spend the time to learn those products.
You guys good if I jump into some of these questions?
Yeah.
I had one more thing too, Nick, and we can get into these in later videos with people, and maybe dive deeper into some more of these techniques, like specific closing techniques. Maybe cover 4 or 5 or 6 in a video where they're exact techniques, because there's a bunch. Like, there's a ton of different techniques that you can use, a bunch of different closes, closing pitches, whatever you want to call them. And we could go over some of the more common ones that you could do that can work in almost any sales environment. They work in dealerships. They could work in real estate. When you finally find the right house, the things that Austin could say to kind of push them over that edge, things like that. So we could dive into those at a later time, but let's cover some questions for now. That'd be great.
So let's ask this one, because this ties right into that. What's your favorite or preferred closing technique?
Austin, do you have one?
My favorite or preferred?
Yep.
I don't know. I don't know if I have a favorite.
Right off the bat, I was thinking about in RV sales, and this is right up until the point you've showed them everything. And so this could relate for just about anything. You're selling a TV or whatever the heck you're doing. Even at a garage sale, you're showing them everything about a product, and you get to that uncomfortable question of like moving to the register or cashing out a sale or signing a contract. One of my favorite lines, and I stole this, but it's, have you seen enough to make a decision or to make a buying decision or a purchasing decision?
Yeah.
And if they say no, say, okay, what else? What is stopping you? You can go into the questions and dive in. But, when I'm selling an RV and I'm talking to a customer and I've hit all their points, I found the right trailer, I can see it usually in their eyes that it hit price, payment, whatever, hit all the features that they needed for their family or for their traveling event or whatever. I can see it. Usually it's on the little golf cart ride back inside. I ask them, or which was your favorite? I narrow it down to the top 1 or 2, maybe. Okay, let's go back inside those. And then when I'm there, I pitch those hard of the reasons why, they should buy the particular product. And then as we're driving back in, I look at them and say, hey, have you made enough to make a buying decision? Or have you seen enough to make a decision? And typically speaking, yeah. Okay, well, let's go put it to paper. Let's see how it looks. If everything matches up the way that you wanted to do it, then let's get it done.
Yeah.
And, that's part of an assumptive close too, right there, is like, you're just assuming, like, hey, we're just going to go in and write it up and credit's going to be good, deposit's going to be good, all that stuff. But I found that sometimes that question could be maybe a little uncomfortable. And I think a lot of salespeople are scared to ask for the sale. And so I just go in and ask for it. Once I've shown them the regular routine, talk to them, and then kind of work through their objections, boom, I ask. Sometimes they're like, oh, no, I need a couple more months. Okay. Like, what are we talking, like a week, 2 weeks? Narrow that down, try to get an exact.
Like, months. We said months.
Yeah. And,
we didn't say
I narrow it down. Yeah, I push them a little bit because sometimes they're not telling the exact truth. They put up little barriers and little walls because they're scared of commitment. So you can ask them, look, what is it? Is it just you need more time? Is it the money? What's the problem? Because most of the time the excuse they give you isn't really the real reason. I've had managers where I do a manager turn, go back in, say the same things or delve just a little bit farther than I did, and they get the real reason, right? I mean, you guys have all had that. And you're like, what the crap? They didn't tell me that.
Everyone hears it from authoritative voice, and all of a sudden it's gold now. Whatever you just said is now true.
That's
sometimes we'll think
that's a club like right there, right? Doing a manager turn or turning it to another salesperson.
Well, we in finance, we pretend to be the manager and go in and we'll say, hey, I was talking to the finance manager and, I just want to make sure we take care of you, answer all your questions, and then go back over the same stuff. It's the same thing.
Well, I call all the finance guys finance managers for that very reason, because then no matter what, they look at it as an authoritative, like Austin was saying, and then they come in and, I think this payment, they quoted you this, but if we try a bank or this or that, I think we could get pretty dang close. Could you do that? Could you handle? And they drop it like $3 or $1, and they're like, oh yeah, I think we can figure that out. You're like, what the heck? That's everything I just said, but now it came from that guy. Yeah.
Right. As long as you don't use like urgency close. That's like one of my least favorite. Whenever you say that this one's in for a limited time, like, or we only, this is the last one on the lot or anything like that, like, unless it absolutely is the truth.
Yeah. I would say you got to be careful in those scenarios. Yeah, you're right.
Okay. So this ties into the next question, right? Like, are closing techniques welcomed by the buyer?
So it depends on the closing technique. I mean, some of them, like I said, urgency close is never welcomed. Almost everyone knows 9 times out of 10, whenever a typical sales guy says that, it's BS. Like there's not the last one. They have another one in shipping, or it's in the back, or whatever else where you're at. But when I try to use them, there's some that I try to use, and Ryan was kind of talking about it. It's this or that is kind of the way that this or that close is kind of the way I do it. Where it's as you're walking through them, like in trailers, it's would you prefer this one or that one, and then you go to the next one. Would you prefer this one or that one? You go to this one or that one, and so that way they're themselves checking off trailer after trailer after trailer or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And so then by the time we get to the end, we're like, well, this is obviously your favorite, right? If not, you end up back on the other one. Even if they want to go to a different, you end up backtracking to one, go off on a different route, they still eventually have to pick one. So it just kind of makes them decide.
You need to narrow it down though, right? Like 2 or 3 choices max. Because what I've seen when I first started, I was showing them every car on the lot when I did car sales, and I'd lose them. They'd lose interest.
3, good, better, best. Closing technique.
Yeah.
100%.
So if you have 3 of them, that's the most options most people can handle. That's why In-N-Out Burger is so good. That's why any of these have short, small menus, and then you throw in some surprises every now and then, and people get excited about that, super excited. But simple menus is usually the best. That's why people hate going to Cheesecake Factory half the time, is because they don't want to decide between 10 pages.
Yeah, 400 pages of menu.
It's choice overload. But I think going back to the question of, are they welcome? Do they recognize and do they welcome it? I don't think so. I think people are savvy now. Like when they recognize that you're trying to close them, they fight back.
Yeah.
Have you guys experienced that?
That's why I think, you got to prime them a little bit. That's why I use that, have you seen enough to make a decision? Does this check all the boxes? All those types of things, because it almost gives them kind of a little bit of power back. As a salesperson, they'll talk about you holding the conversation, you retaining that power and being in control. I think it works up to a point, but I like putting that back on the person, saying, look, there's not pressure. In a sense, you're saying there's no pressure, but look, this fits all the boxes. So what's stopping you? And if you say it in the right way, in the right tones, after you've built up a relationship, I have a lot of people, there's a few that resist a little bit, and then I'll try to push just a hair more just to see. I'll usually say stuff like, look, I'm not pushy. But then I'll ask them a pushy question.
I'm not pushy.
I don't know if that's I don't know what kind of psychology is behind that. Nick, you would know better than me, but sometimes I'm like, look, I know, I get it. I hate pushy salespeople, but are you looking to buy like in the next week, 2 weeks, today? Is this something, if you found the right deal today, that you could move on? Without sounding like a giant douche, you can do that in the right setting. I don't know that it's necessarily welcome, but you can still do it if you have some tact and get around some of those barriers that traditional salespeople have built up, these, these enormous douchebag walls, so people walk into a dealership and they just know they're going to get sold.
The first
they just
10
know.
minutes of every customer I ever had was just, I promise I'm not a douche. Let's just get through this together.
Half the time I'm on the lot, half the time I'm up on the lot, I try not to even talk trailers. Like a huge amount of it is just like, hey, oh, where are you from? Oh, you do this? Do you hunt? Oh, I know that guy that lives there. Isn't he your neighbor? Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that guy. Pretty soon you build connections. People like you. You can ask them almost anything that you want at that point. In sales, a lot of times they'll have you, at least at our dealership, they'll have you ask for their personal information right up front: name, address, phone number, email, on this big giveaway form. And Austin knows this, and because he's seen it, and Nick, you guys have it there too at General RV. But I don't get it up front. I'll get their name. Half the time I don't even know their damn name when I'm selling them an RV. Like, they'll be filling out paperwork and I'll learn their name when I'm like taking their debit card and their driver's license. Like, literally, I'll forget their name. It's not a big deal. They don't like interview at the lot and say, what was my name again?
It's funny though. I remember people by what they bought more than who they are.
That's 100%. Yeah.
100%.
But I'll usually, by the time I circle around and get back to the tables, like in the dealership, because I've talked to them and worked through them, what they want, what they need, they feel like they've got somebody that they can trust. It's, remember, not a pushy salesperson, not one of those douchebags. It's just me. Remember, we're friends. All of a sudden, they're giving me their name, address, phone number, whatever I ask for, and I've got the critical information to follow up if I need to, or whatever. But a lot of times, I'm asking those hard questions as I'm walking back in the doors.
I think the psychology behind that is the more you let people go, the more they want to come to you. It's more attractive to them. And so if you let them know up front, look, you don't have to do this. I'm not going to push you. If you want to go look elsewhere, that's good. It releases the pressure off of them. And in releasing that pressure, they want to come back to you. Like, it builds
I do that
trust.
all the time. Don't tell General RV that, but I send people to General RV all the time. We're a mile apart, right? So I send them that direction all the time. And a lot of times they're like, oh, no, it's okay. I've seen enough. Like, I don't need to go up there. I don't want to go up there. But now, because they don't know, they've been to 2 or 3 other dealerships probably, and they had a douchebag or two that won't stop calling them and wants them to buy right this second. But now that I'm pushing them away, all of a sudden it's like a magnet attracting them back.
Well, and that's a huge thing in my business. And I've gotten multiple customers from this, and they'll come back and say, well, we just wanted to come back with you just because we liked you. Like, you're hard not to like, you know what I mean? So
you are hard not to like, Austin. I've tried really hard.
Try harder.
I beg to differ.
Try harder.
Austin, I don't like you.
You wouldn't. That would be like you. That's okay.
Austin went on vacation for like 2 weeks and it felt like 2 years. It was like crying at night. I missed my buddy.
It was rough.
If you need real estate though, like, seriously, you go talk to Austin, because he is that best friend. He is that guy that will care.
Just cut out.
Oh,
what?
Yeah. I said something about a son of a, and then all of a sudden it cut out. Yeah.
Nick's got his finger on the bleep button over there. He's like, no.
He's bleeping it. Go see Austin real estate.
No, but I was just like Nick said, he was saying that everyone's more savvy now, that you have, with the ridiculous internet access and stuff that everybody has now, and the amount of information that's out there and the ease that people can get to it. They know all the salesman stuff. Like, they don't want salesmen. They want to be buying from a friend and somebody they're going to trust. Like you both have kind of mentioned that, but you can't do the typical sales stuff unless you really just don't care about them, I guess. And you can try for a while.
So let me ask you this along with that. Do you think assertive techniques, do you think they increase the likelihood of a sale?
Assertive techniques?
Yeah. Like if I come at you, hey, you going to get this? You said you were going to get it.
At an RV show, when it's a quick sale and you got to move quickly, door to door, like, I think there's certain situations where some of those actually work. There's another Austin that works at Camping World, and his background was door-to-door sales. And in some of that, you've got to ask quickly. You've got to move quickly, and you have to be assertive. And at that point, I think you're working through numbers. at a dealership or through real estate, you've got kind of one shot at it. And it's probably, for me, it's a 1 to 3 hour event. For Austin, it could be a week or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or months where you've been cultivating that relationship. And if you assert too soon, you blow it all, and you could lose $20, $30, $40,000 in a deal, even especially if they buy on the front end and the back end in real estate. Austin just had one just recently. And if he was, came off douchey, the guy's not going to do anything with him. He's going to go, yeah, nah, there's about a billion other of you guys out there. No, thanks. I'm good.
I'm out. Yeah. The drop of a hat. They don't care. They'd be working with you for weeks, and that drop of a hat, if you, do the wrong thing, they're gone.
We've both have had best friends, neighbors, and relatives that come to you or don't come to you, and you're like, what the crap? Like, I work at the place where you bought the trailer, right? Oh yeah. Or or they don't even talk to you. They bought it. You see them go to finance. Or Austin's had people where best friends growing up, and then all of a sudden, boom, they don't use him. They use some no-name Joe off the street. That's kind of jacked up.
Well, yeah, but that's a little into marketing, and maybe a little fault on my part too. So we're learning.
Well, people should buy from their friends, and you want to become, you want to have somebody that you can trust. I don't think you should do any shady things. I don't lie to my customers. I don't cheat them. Is it okay to make money if they get what they want, you get what they want, and everybody wins? Sure. That's why people are in business. I don't think you have to just, rape and pillage. But, people know that, hey, a real estate agent makes 3%, right? Unless you can negotiate a fee. If they're doing more work for you on the front end and the back end, sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. I guess it all depends on the market that you're in.
Depends on what they want.
Honestly. Yeah. And so, being a friend is part of the closing. The assumptive, sometimes you can get in, or an assertive close.
I think in retail, you got to be assertive. Like, every time you should be asking for a sell. Where you get into real estate, it's a little different. You're building a relationship longer, but you're still asking for the sell. I don't think it's a case where you just kind of sit back, right?
No, that's to me, it's a mix between assertive and assumptive, honestly. Like, you kind of walk a fine line there, and if you cross that line, you become a douche, and if you don't, you get a sale. So it's kind of the big difference.
Like, man, I've been crossing the wrong line.
Yeah, no, it's hard. When I was doing that with T-Mobile, we'd always have to do the same thing. And there's half the time I just start talking to somebody about something, just out of the blue, and all of a sudden be like, yeah, it's right here. It's like nothing here. I can throw it on here for $3. Like, let's do it. You know what I mean? And all the time, okay, yeah, sure, that's nothing.
Right.
And so
you can kind of lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, kind of thing. Yeah. I mean, you could take it all the way through the process, and they could say no.
Yeah.
Perfect. Should we go to the next question?
Do it.
Sure.
What are techniques used to close a wound? That's not a sales question.
Close a wound?
Hey, sometimes there's lots of wounds in sales.
Yeah.
Mostly rub some salt in it. If
are you talking about being butthurt?
Yeah, right. Well, no, it's usually when you're with a customer. This happens at RV shows. You're with a customer, spend all the time, you prime them, prep them, get them all the way, like 99% of the way, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to look for just a minute. We'll be right back. You turn your back for 2 seconds, and another salesman's all of a sudden at the table with them, writing them up.
So it's closing your own wounds.
Ooh,
from your other salesman.
Those hurt.
That's licking the wounds, man. That's like, oh, geez.
Or when Quentin calls you from up at General RV and said, hey, your customer just came in and I sold him a trailer. You could, it makes me feel good. I couldn't get it done. Thanks, Quentin, for that phone call.
At least they ran into a salesman somewhere.
How about when you're handling obstacles or dilemmas, objections? What are some good techniques for that?
Handling objections. Well, one of them I was already kind of talking about, I guess, was just kind of being ready for it. I mean, if you don't know what you're talking about, you're going to get caught, and then you look stupid, and then they're going to call you out real quick because they're sitting there Googling at all your answers, checking you out, making sure you're right the whole way walking around, right? So, I mean, you got to know what you're talking about. You got to be ready for them and realize a real objection versus a pocket objection and which one to go after. So,
Man, there's a big distinction there. Like in finance, I get people all the time that say, I'll do the work myself, or I have a friend that's a mechanic and I don't need a warranty, or I've had a warranty in the past. Those are all kind of pocket objections that people have looked up online, like how to shut down a finance manager, right? But I think the best way to handle those is to ask them, like, what do you mean? So tell me about that. What happened? How come you try to do the work yourself? How come you don't do warranties? Like, ask them questions. That's what I do.
Dive in. Don't just accept it.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think when you think a customer or a client or whatever is they're criticizing, they'll go through trailers and they'll criticize and point out things. Sometimes I think salespeople think they're objections. Sometimes they're just stating it. Sometimes it's an obvious fact, like, God, this trailer's kind of built like shit. Yeah, you're right. It really is, Or you could be like, oh, you get all mad and defend the trailer brand and this, that, the other. Sometimes that doesn't mean that they're not buying it. Like, oh, look at this trim, it's hanging off. Yeah, I get that. Sometimes sometimes it happens. And I work around the objection a little bit, but sometimes they don't even need that. Sometimes they're like, oh, but I saw other ones. They don't finish the statement, but they've seen 20 other brands down the street with their trim hanging off. So just pointing it out, doesn't mean they're not going to buy one from you. It's just sometimes you have to learn what's an objection, like a real showstopper, versus just pointing out, something that they don't particularly love, about the product.
Perfect. I like that. So have you guys heard of the 1 to 10 closing technique?
1 to 10?
Yeah.
Like on a scale 10 type of deal?
Yeah.
Flip a coin.
Like where would you rate it?
Somebody's asking, what is the purpose of it? And what it is on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to buy this today? Or on a scale of 1 to 10, how have I done in presenting this? And it's a technique where once they answer, they say 1 to 3, then you got some work to do. If they're 6 to 10, then you say, well, let's go ahead and sign you up. Perfect. I've answered all your questions. Let's go ahead and sign you up.
I don't like it. I don't know if that's
I don't think I'd ever use it either.
No,
I've never used it.
It's a close though, right? I mean,
it's a close, yeah. I mean, I guess I could see it maybe working in some situations, but 9 times out of 10, I mean, you ask them to give you something, either they kind of liked you and they're going to give you a 10 anyway, or they're going to give you a 1, or I don't know. It just seems like, or if they're actually going to be honest and you get a 6, you're like, well, let's buy it. They're like, I said a 6. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Well, I hate you, so you're walking back. I'm not taking back in my golf cart. Thanks for this.
I don't know. They give you a 1. Like, how's that ride back? Like, well.
Right.
I think it could work in certain situations though. Like I would put it more back on the product and trying to find out which one was their favorite. Because I've had people that you get done with 3 different trailers, like Austin was talking about, and you can't. They are stone cold. They are killers, man. They would make amazing poker players. You can't read shit. You're like, what the hell? Like, show me a sign. Like, give me a smirk, like a little, or like a, something. There's no facial expressions. Like, they're nothing. Yeah, it's the weirdest thing. But if you could maybe do something like that, I kind of like that 1 to 10. Like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this trailer versus the other one? Or rate the trailers that we've been in. What's
on a scale of 1 to 10, how douchey am I today?
Yeah. I don't think that's the best scenario. 10. Straight 10.
I've had 10, man.
People don't get me or understand me, or where our personalities don't relate.
Right.
I think in that scenario, then you handle the objection by saying, look, I don't know. Let me start again. I apologize if we got off on the wrong foot. Maybe, and they go, yeah, you know what? I just, I don't like you. Sometimes I've had people say, I don't like you, straight to your face. It's like, look, I get that. And I don't get along with everybody, but let's do this, because you came down here and this is for you, not for me. Let me go get somebody else that can answer your questions. And it's hard as a salesperson to handle an objection that way. But a turn is always better than no deal. Because
Absolutely.
Now they'll have a shot.
Yeah, I had one lady tell me to F off and hung up the phone on me. And we saved the deal because I had another finance guy call her back. But
yeah, you're a super.
That's what you're going to do.
Nick is one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Same with Austin. Like, how do you not like these guys? And you can say F off. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, dude. We're
More than
salespeople.
once. Yeah, you're on the phone. Anytime you're on the phone.
Yeah.
People
I
hate
guess
to be
it's what
called.
they don't hear most of the time. You're delivering the bad news that, hey, the bank wants to get paid back at a certain rate and term. So you're the bad guy, right?
Yeah. Sorry, man. You got to pay your payment today. Ah, damn. Okay. So what's another one? What's
Man, bringing
the
it
eye
in.
close technique? Have you heard of that? What's the eye close technique? Isn't it this?
Yeah.
You like
Yeah.
being in a prayer? I hope this goes through.
Yeah. I like that.
Maybe it's you tell them to
I
do
hope
that
you
and then
buy
sign. I don't know. Just
I don't think it's a technique, dude. The
eye
eye
close
close
technique.
I'd have to research
EYEI.
that.
It
There's
says
probably things
EYEI.
we do, you know?
Yeah, EYE, or not AYE or IEI. Like
Yeah.
it's not the Mexican close.
Yeah.
Taco Tuesday.
I want you to buy this.
I want you to buy this. Or I am
Maybe he's just bad
closing
at
it.
spelling. I don't know.
Maybe we're terrible
I don't know.
salespeople and we don't know these closing techniques. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never needed it, and but I'll do some research. Maybe I could figure out what the eye technique is.
Well, isn't that important though? Like a lot of techniques, I think salespeople overthink it. They're trying to do techniques when really all they need to do is connect with the person and ask for the deal. All I do is say, "Do you want to go ahead and do that?" Every time I present the information and ask, "Do you want to go ahead and do that?" That's my technique. It's pretty easy.
I think you need to have a base model and then adjust it by the person. Every person usually that I'm closing in a slightly different way. If you teach everybody like the exact same number, you know what I mean, then they're going to be pissed. doesn't work. Everyone's
Guy's
not a
looking at his
one-size-fits-all.
book. Okay, what's step 2? What's step 3?
Yeah.
It feels that way too, though, right?
Yeah, it does. Some places make you sell that way, and it's impossible. I mean, you can do it, but it keeps you in line. But realize most of that stuff should be a skeleton and work on.
Right. They're hiring at Home Depot quality salespeople. If you want to read a book, step 1, 3, 5. Hey, how do you use this? Well, I don't know, man.
We might have Home Depot people on this call trying to become better salespeople. And you know what? Even though I don't think that they make commissions. Maybe I'm wrong.
Home Depot?
Yeah, I don't think they do they? They probably get paid hourly, but
no way
I really
commission.
do appreciate like when you do go to Home Depot and you find somebody that's knowledgeable and that will really help you. Because I don't know, like I'm freaking have soft hands. I'm a sales guy, right? I don't know how to fix everything.
Salesman hands.
Really silky smooth fingers, ladies. Pay attention.
Never had a splinter in my life.
Yeah, I know, right? What's that?
You're not the Ron Swanson walking through there.
Yeah,
but I know more than you.
I want somebody that knows what they're doing, I'm a consumer. I can relate to when somebody comes in to an RV dealership, and says, I'm looking at trailers. I kind of expect that the salesperson is going to show me stuff that's going to know more than me,
Hopefully.
Now, they might not, you might have been researching one brand or one trailer for eons, and you know it down to the freaking nut, bolt, screw, everything that's on that trailer. A salesperson, because they're constantly changing, they might do things mid-year changes. A salesman has to know, they got to know the basics, but a lot of times because there's hundreds and hundreds of units on their lot, they'll know the main points. They'll know a few technical details, but there might be a change from one model that's sitting next to it that's a 2020 and the next one's a 2020 as well, but they made a change. You might be savvy to that change, but the salesperson might not have been told that change yet because you've been watching every single little video online. But we've got to watch all the videos and try to figure it out for all the brands and stuff. So I would say if you go check out an RV or a car, give the salesperson a little bit of a break, but you're definitely going to want to, find somebody that knows what the heck they're talking about. Otherwise, then why do you need a salesperson?
Wait, are we training consumers here? That's kind of like we're training consumers.
I'm cutting my own throat.
He's related.
You don't need me. Just go over there and just
yeah. Is this thing still on? Yeah. Anyway, that's all the questions I've got here. But for those of you that are watching, did you guys have any other comments though on closing techniques before we do this? Like before we close out?
No, I felt like some of those questions, they might have accidentally hopped on this phone call instead of, like the 911 call that they were supposed to be on about a wound. But
how do you close a wound?
How do you close a wound?
You're on the wrong website.
Sutures, apply pressure. You don't.
If you were watching this video, Austin, did you have anything?
No, not particularly.
I swear we're the authority on some things.
On something.
Yeah.
But if you're going to ask us questions, we're probably not doctors. And some of these things sound pretty made up. But we'll do our best. We'll answer your questions.
Dr. Fish.
Yeah.
I'm still curious about the eye close. I'm going to go look into that.
So, yeah, but if you're watching this video, ask us some more questions. Throw them in the comments. Make sure you like our page, subscribe to our page, and then follow us at p8training.com. But I think that's it for today. Did you have something else, Ryan?
Nope. Just do those things that Nick said.
Yeah.
Comments. Like. We're idiots. But we have fun. That's all that matters. So
and we're good at what we do.
Have fun.
Yep. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the next video.
Bye.